Great defeaters, new and old, welcome to another episode of The Breakdown with your hosts, BaseDaKID, Tony, Pugilist Boy. We are the children of the game. Tony, how has your weekend been? Are you fortunate? Are you happy?
9 games to go. I'm extremely happy, brother. 9 games to go. 9 cup finals. Needless to say, you know us Arsenal fans, we are on one right now. I can't help it. I have to say, they're pleasing me extremely. And when they please me extremely, my weekends go really well.
I mean, I don't know if I should comment on that because that sounds very suspect, but whatever makes you happy, my guy. Boxing channel and you get out and you're getting off on the all right, cool. You know what? Say nothing. Like, yeah, 9 games to go. Let's see if you last the distance. But you're doing well, doing well. Now,
Thank you.
bringing it
Thank you.
bringing it back to boxing. How was your boxing weekend?
Yeah, and it followed. I'm so pleased when I get the good action on the field and then I get the good action in the ring. Great weekend of boxing. Saw some fantastic fights. Saw some, but overall, superbly entertaining weekend of boxing. I will be very tuned in when we start talking about the superbly entertaining weekend of boxing.
So nice, you had to hear it twice.
Twice. Yeah. So, yeah, I was very impressed by what I saw from the top rank card from across the waters. So, yeah, we'll get into that later.
Okay, well, we ain't gonna take too much time today because I'm sure we know what the people want. But as always, if everyone please like and subscribe and share with a friend, a colleague, an associate, anyone else in between, we do appreciate it. And while I've got you guys here, obviously I will. Oh, actually, let me. Tony, talk 1 second. I'm just looking for something. Oh, actually, no, don't worry, it's right here. Yeah, apologies. Yeah, so while we are doing our stuff on the stream, if you want to just say what's up to the people, and then we can get started.
Get me sound on. Okay, so without further delay, let's get the important member, new member to the team, Thumper. Thank you very much for joining the membership. Don't forget, guys, if you haven't done so already, please consider joining the membership. You will be getting some great content. You'll be helping the channel. And of course, when we do have special guests like we do next week, those members, you're the ones whose questions will be addressed most importantly. Yeah. So do consider joining the membership. Has a lot of benefits to it. Great stuff. Thank you, Thumper. Big up to Spoker D in the house. Big up to Untraceable in the house. Hardest working man, Jay Lands in the house. Jam Down 187. Always a pleasure. You know I'm bringing the energy. I only have one way to go. Energy. Yes, my people. We was on time, by the way. We clocked in at 9 o'clock on the dot with the countdown. CS in the house, big up. Shout out North Bank Bren. Yes, sir. Respect another one of my North Bank compadres who will be looking at the next 9 games with great vengeance and furious anger. James Douglas, big up to yourself. Thank you for your comment, Untraceable, about my comments about AJ. We will be reaching back into that later on in the show. Bigsy Biggs, welcome. Big up to yourself. Fight fan Danny, thank you for joining us. I Lucan and Major K Dot. And who else we got? We got Gucci Guwap. We got Jonathan Johnson. And that
Yeah,
is it.
big up to Gucci. I remember I spoke to Gucci at the fight on Saturday. Saw a lot of people at the fight actually, to be fair. And at the press conference, it was a very interesting times to find out actually who actually recognizes you and who doesn't. So it's it's a good look. So thank you, yeah, thank you very much to everyone that did come up to me and say what's happening on Friday and Saturday. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it.
Cooler than the gang. Okay, so normally we start off with the main in chronological order, but because we want to actually finish with the big event, which was obviously the AJ versus Franklin fight, we're going to start off with the fight on ESPN, which was also shown on Sky Sports, which was headlined by Isaac Dogboe fighting Robesi El Tren Ramirez for the vacant WBO. Oh, God help me, jeez.
What, the WBO featherweight title?
Featherweight title. Thank you. So I'm going to talk about some of the undercard first before I get to the main event, because I'm going to lead on this one, because I know, Base, you didn't quite catch as much as I do, and you probably weren't as enthused about it as I was. But I want to talk about the undercard. You know, this was, to me, a very good, entertaining set of boxing. And there were 4 fights in particular that took my eye. 4 youngsters. 4 youngsters that we have talked about on previous occasions, because they do tend to be members of Top Rank's stable that get regular fights. They're fighting every 3 months and they're on shows regularly. And as a result, we get to see them regularly. Okay, some of them have had a little break, but in the main, they're fighting on a regular basis. We're seeing their progression. And although they're still in the infancy of their careers, they're very entertaining fighters. So without further ado, my first one that I'm going to talk about is Emiliano Vargas, who was fighting Edgar Uvale. Emiliano Vargas was 3-0, 2 KOs, coming in against the 2 wins, 3 losses, 2 draws, Edgar Uvale. He's an 18-year-old fighter. So he's been signed up by Top Rank, 18 years old, and quite simply, he came out and put in some serious hard work in his first rounds and stopped his man. Second round, counter right hand. Now, probably not much to talk about in terms of, well, you know, it's only lasted 2 rounds. What was the other guy like? But hey, you know what? When you see an 18-year-old put on a display under the lights with the cameras, you know, he didn't go all, you know, hesitant because of the lights and the amount of people in the crowd. He went out and he did his thing. And for 18 years old, Emiliano Vargas is somebody you want to take a little keen eye on. He's now 4-0, 3 KOs, and quite simply, one to watch. Moving on swiftly, Dante Benjamin was fighting Jasper McCargo. Dante Benjamin, 5-0, 3 KOs coming into the fight. 20 years old, fighting the 4 wins, 2 losses, and 2 draws, Jasper McCargo, with, you know, again, vicious hands from this Dante Benjamin. I mean, he had the guy down 4 times in 2 rounds. Once in the first round, 3 times in the second round. Vicious uppercuts and hooks were just going in like rain. And all I can say is, another kid to watch, you know, at 20 years old, coming in on a big card and showing out. Loved it. Vicious. I call this card the vicious card because there was a lot of viciousness in this card. My number 3 fight, Abdullah Mason. Again, another kid I've mentioned many a time. Yeah. I haven't got Abdullah's record up here for some reason. But anyway, he's 18 years old. And again, he's a regular on Top Rank cards. And he comes in and absolutely destroys Eric Benitez in 1 round. Wow. Vicious. I mean, here's a kid who really knows his stuff. He comes in ready, willing, and able. And once again, guys, if you haven't had a chance to watch him, you know, he's got a back catalogue of stuff on YouTube. You can watch on Top Rank. These are the kids I'm gonna say I'm looking at and going, watch out for the future. Now, of course, there's no guarantees in this game, but I'm bringing my energy to these kids because I think they're the future. The last one, slightly off the it was still a vicious fight, but this one was slightly different. It's Jahai Tucker. Now, Jahai Tucker, 9-0, 5 KOs. Again, very young, 20 years old. He took on Nicolas Sekniavili, the southpaw, who was himself 8-1-0 with 6 KOs. So he's no scrub because his 8-1 record shows, you know what? I've won most of my fights with the exception of one, and I've KO'd 6 out of the 8. So this was a step up for Jahai Tucker. And believe me, this guy that he fought, Seknivili, he came to fight because in the first round, he ragdolled Jahai Tucker. He had him all over the place. Hurt him, body shots, hurt him, head shots, temple shots. It was like, oh my gosh, what am I watching? I was in this for the Jahai Tucker show. And all of a sudden, this kid is coming and he's like taking over. Round 1, he had Jahai Tucker in a hot mess. Anyhow, Jahai Tucker didn't go down, but he managed to see through the first round. Second round, he comes out. He's obviously a little bit disorientated, discombobulated, call it what you like, but he has to find his feet. And he begins to move around and find some range. Doesn't quite, I think win the round, but he does enough to tell you, I'm back in this. From round 3 onwards, it's the Jahai Tucker show. From there on in, viciousness. Jahai Tucker comes out round 3 and he takes over the fight. And basically, it's a great fight because his opponent doesn't in any round allow him to just have it all his own way. But it's a very good fight. Unanimous decision to Jahai Tucker. He goes on with a 10-0 record. No stoppage this time. But again, a very entertaining fight. And again, you can see Jahai Tucker, you know, obviously got caught early. We're going to have to watch out for that in future fights because people are going to say, okay, if we jump all over him, we might get the better of him. But he's, again, another young kid at 20 years old that I can endorse and say one to watch. And again, got plenty of back catalogue of fights on YouTube if you want to fight, if you want to see him. So that, my friends, is the undercard for what was the main events. There was some other fights on there. I know, Maestro, you were particularly interested in Tiger Johnson. Do you want to talk about that one?
Did you just call me Maestro? Am I a teacher now? Wow, you just transferring energy that big, yeah? All right, I see how we're doing today. It's fine.
I'm so excited.
You clearly have had a good weekend. I mean, this is not this is excess energy, Tony, but we'll take it. We like it. No, look, the Tiger Johnson fight I thought was actually a pretty good fight, to be honest. It wasn't like him at his roaring best, no pun intended, but if it's like at the end of the day, this to me was the learning fight that he needed. He needed someone that was going to give him a lot of necessary pushback within the rounds, and someone that, you know, he can't just be slick against and be able to sort of pick and counter. Now, one thing that I did like about Tiger Johnson in this fight is every time he was under pressure, there wasn't, even though he was actually getting caught, there was no necessary like panic, but everything, he wasn't even really doing you know, sort of excess movement trying to slip shots. Everything was like very tight. It was that just every moment and then he would block one, maybe one might get through, block another, but he wasn't allowing any of like the hardest shots to get through. There was, I think he took a big shot in the 3rd round which had him backing off which Oliveira I think noticed and obviously went for the he went for the kill. But again, he just stayed composed on the ropes, managed to sort of get his bearings, span off eventually, and then came back with his own work to not take the round back because I still feel like he lost it, but he just showed that, I'm not going to be bullied. And he's good movement, good timing. So, yeah, I'm still quite high on Tiger Johnson. I do like his style. Obviously, again, it was another points decision on the night. The card did have quite a few of them, especially the fights that I bet on were all by decision, and they all came to fruition. But yeah, that one was good. Jeremiah Milton, the 28-year-old heavyweight prospect they've got, who I think he was 8-0 at the start of the show and 9-0, I believe. Could potentially be wrong on that. Um, he's in terms of his actual style, I feel like he's a sort of a basic 1-2 type puncher. But what I do like is he doesn't just throw 1-2s. He basically frames his opponent or uses the forearm to position them, a bit like how Tyson Fury did um, Steve Cunningham. He'll have the forearm towards either the back of the head, at the side of the head, or he'll have the arm extended out, and then he drives through with his with his free hand, and occasionally whips in sort of little hooks or sort of little they're straights, but they're like maybe looping straights. They're not quite flush down the target, but it's still a straight shot. Um, he was
He's
facing
so
Fabio
he's
Maldonado.
he's 9-0 now. He was 8-0, 7
8-0.
six
Seven
KOs.
KOs, six KOs.
Six
Yeah,
KOs.
that's right. Yeah, he was facing Fabio Maldonado, who, if I think Joe Joyce has faced him back in the day, and if I'm correct, I think AJ might have faced him years ago as well. But he's 43 now. He gave Jeremiah Milton some pretty good work. He rushed in. He was game. He was showing that basically he wasn't going to be bullied by the prospect, and I feel like he gave Milton the rounds that Milton needed. Like it wasn't one of Milton's better performances, but as a novice pro, he's still sort of learning his trade. But some of the little stuff that he does, I feel like will find him in good stead moving forward in his career, especially like I said, when it comes to that framing and trying to keep distance or trying to impose your size. Because even though he doesn't actually look it, he's about 255 pounds, but when you look at his frame, he actually doesn't look that big. So he carries his weight well. Obviously, he's quite a fairly tall guy. I think he's like 6'4". So he is one of those guys that looks like he'd be able to absorb a good shot in the like if he has to take one. So it'll be good to see what the next step up for him is. But yeah, overall that was a pretty interesting one. And when we finish here, I'm actually going to go back and rewatch the rest of the card anyway. But go.
Cool. So let's move on to the co-main from that event, which was Joet Gonzalez, who in his last 3 fights has fought some outstanding fights. Obviously, he recently lost to Isaac Dogboe on a split decision. But prior to that, his only other losses came to Emmanuel Navarrete, the free weight division champion, and to Shakur Stevenson. So this is a kid who's got some huge amount of experience at super bantam and feather, and he came into this fight as the sort of favorite against Eric Vivas or Enrique Vivas, I should say. Now this was just totally unexpected. I've got some footage. I've got some pictures. I'll talk about it while I watch it. Make sure I get the right one. There we go. Joet Gonzalez against Vivas. So Gonzalez 25 3-0. So he's got a good record, as I said, fought some good champions before this fight. But this was just one of them fights that two guys were matched really well. And they fought basically like if they were in a phone booth. They were toe-to-toe for the entire 10 rounds. There wasn't a moment where they were too far apart and weren't able to catch each other. And it was just a will of who was going to dominate the other, with the will to be more workmanlike in their attitude to work. You're going to see here, look, they're both letting their hands go. Even when they get close, they're not holding. They're not interested in holding. Let the hands go. And as you can see, there's plenty of good movement. But, neither is defensively terrific. But they literally just worked each other over for the entire 10 rounds. Now, scores-wise, the challenger, Enrique Vivas, he won the first and probably the second round. He did to me win the first and second round. On the judges, many of the judges only gave him the first, but I gave him the second as well. But basically, it was, I'm going to come out and show you that I'm not just an opponent. You see the mouth guard, I think, comes out in this sequence. But this is, this was a great fight to watch. They both gave it everything. There was no backing up. There was, it was forward action all the time. This was just for the purist. You're probably not that happy because you're thinking, well, defensively they're quite lax, but action-wise you couldn't complain. There was, 1,500 plus punches were thrown, which, if you know anything about your punch stats, 1,500 punches between two guys in a 10-round fight is hella high. So as a co-main, this was a very entertaining fight. As I said, 10 rounds of non-stop action. Scores are 99-91 and 98-92 to Joet Gonzalez in the final reckoning. But it was, without a doubt, a very entertaining fight. Enrique Vivas gets a lot of credit for his performance.
Did those scorecards sound about right to you?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Now that was one of the ones. Yeah, I think I did. I must have dozed off when that one was. I saw the main event and I saw a couple of the undercard, but I definitely didn't see that one on the first watch along. So, like I said, I'm gonna have to go back and watch some. That will be one of those fights.
Okay. So the next fight was the main event, which was Isaac Dogboe fighting Robesi Ramirez for the vacant WBO featherweight title. Got to bring up my notes. Okay, so here we have it. This was an exciting fight, people. I'm referring to my notes because I did take some notes. Miami-based Cuban, Robesi Ramirez, 11-1-0. His one loss was his very first fight as a professional. Trained by the legendary Ismael Salas, the double Olympic champion. Robesi was having his first world title crack against the seasoned Isaac Dogboe. Now, I know Danny from Fight Fan knows Isaac Dogboe because he was resident here in UK for quite a while. Boxed as an amateur here in the UK. Lived in London. I don't know where he's based out of now at the moment, but basically the Ghanaian. Thanks. The Ghanaian Isaac Dogboe, 24-2-0. His only losses are in to the same man, which was Emmanuel Navarrete, which was a super bantamweight title loss and a rematch a few months later to Navarrete. So, look, he's got a great pedigree with his 24 fights. The former super bantamweight champion and current was going out for a title in a second weight division. This was everything that it was made out to be. For those who know the two fighters, they're both been in good scraps that you could say, you know what? Yeah, this had the makings of a very good fight. And once again, as somebody had said previously in the chat, as far as matchmaking concerned, this was a dream. So the first thing that I noticed was when Robesi comes out, there's hella noise from his Cuban compatriots in the crowd. And it's something that I noticed throughout the whole fight. His people came out in mass numbers. Obviously, Isaac Dogboe, originally Ghanaian, formerly from the UK, fighting in the US, he didn't have anywhere near the same level of support. But, you know, the crowd were behind Rabasi in a big way. Now, Rabasi comes out in the first round and he's swinging big. The guy is already, as I said, a double Olympic champion. So fundamentals-wise, he's got everything. Great movement, good head movement, good defense, good punch selection. You know, everything that you want in a fighter, we've seen it from him up to this point. But how's he going to get on against the dogged Isaac Dogboe? And he comes out, he's going to take charge. And he basically comes out, he's hitting hard. It to me looks like Ismail Salas has said to him, go out and hurt this guy from the get-go. Because he comes out with vicious punches. And you notice I'm using that word again, vicious. Because the whole night to me was vicious. Shame that Anthony Joshua wasn't vicious tonight. But anyway, that's for later. But he comes out, you know, big, he's coming out as a southpaw, and he's coming out with vicious backhand lefts into the face of Dogboe, and Dogboe is literally feeling his power from the get-go. But Dogboe is one of them guys that, you know, if you look at the Navarrete fight, he's accustomed. He knows what it feels like to get hurt and to be on the end of big punches. And he's one of them guys that, you know what, Cha, I'll take yours. Can you take mine? And he's very effective at not letting Rabasi just get off without getting something back in return. So Rabasi comes out with the ammunition. He hits my guy. But Dogboe is at the end of everything Rabasi throws, he throws his own stuff. And he's tagging Rabasi to say, yeah, all right, I took what you got, but can you continue taking what I'm going to give you? But in the early rounds, Rabasi is definitely winning because his work is more accurate and there's more of it. Yeah. So rounds 1, rounds 2, I got those two. Rabasi big. Round 3, Dogboe's getting more into the fight, but I still give it to Rabasi. Round 4, the action doesn't cease. Both fighters in each other's faces. Again, Dogboe's trainer is giving him all manner of sermon because he's a Christian. And my man is giving him, the Lord said this and that. And I'm like, bruh, my man's going deep in the Bible to inspire my man. You know, this is what you was built for. The Lord said you was ready for this. Make sure this. And he's calling on his ancestors, you know. I'm not lying. My man said to him, listen, your ancestors worked too damn hard for you to come here today and not perform. So my man is getting the spirit of his ancestors now in this fight. And round 5, Dogboe starts switch hitting. Boom, boom, boom. He starts banging on Rabasi. And I got to say, Rabasi took a break for me in round 5 in terms of activity, and Dogboe took advantage. Rabasi just lost that round because he didn't do enough. And Dogboe, he was waiting for that. It was like as if to say, yeah, I've been waiting for you to lower your levels because as soon as this happens, this is where I'm going to take over. And so he takes over round 5. Round 6, big right hand coming out of the corner. Dogboe clocks Rabasi. And it looks like Rabasi's legs go. They kind of wobble a little bit to me. But he hangs in there. And he moves around. It's like, oh, man, what's going on here? Anyway, he gets through the round. But to me, round 6, that's Dogboe again. So he's won 2 rounds on the trot. And his corner are ants now. They're pretty much on him like, yes, bruv, this is it. This is what we was waiting for. My man has now lost it. If you do what you've done in the gym, you're going to take him out. You're going to finish him. Anyway, round 7 comes out. Rabasi's corner, Ismail Salas, the legend, has told him, listen, bro, you must have lost them 2 rounds because round 7, Ramirez comes out with a renewed energy and he is all over Dogboe. But again, it's a very even round. but I'm going to give that round to Ramirez on work rate. Round 8, Barry Hunter turns to Dogboe, says, you just lost that round, bro. You can't let this guy come forward. Don't let him come forward. Yeah? So Dogboe comes in and they exchange jabs, but Dogboe, you can see he's following instructions from his corner. They've told him not to allow Ramirez, Rabasi to come forward. Try to keep him on the back foot where you can be effective. But Rabasi uses his boxing, and now what you can see is a change in strategy, because what he does in round 8 is basically says, okay, I need to lessen the power and I need to work my hands and just outbox this fella. So you see that he's no longer loading up on his shots, and what he's doing now is picking great shots. He's using his jab a lot more, and he's winning the boxing battle because he's picking shots. He's being very good defensively. Yeah, so Dogboe is still throwing his hands on a regular basis, but Rabasi is covering up well, slipping his head, just moving his head away from shots. So a lot of Dogboe shots now in this round 8 are missing, and Rabasi is just catching him with his timing. And from this point onwards, Rabasi has it, because he's now gone, okay, not going to try to go to war with you, not going to stand in the pocket with you, just going to box you. And that's what happens for the rest of the fight. Round 9, Dogboe's corner realize you've lost another round, so they're trying to bring him up. But again, I noticed that the crowd have gone ballistic because of Rabasi's round 8. They're chanting El Tren, El Tren, El Tren. And it just seems like for some reason the crowd is mega loud at this point in the fight, and they wanna like chant their man home, and it has the necessary effects, because round 9, Rabasi picks beautiful shots. He's much more accurate than Dogboe, and Dogboe seems to me to want to do stuff, but he gets into positions, but he just can't throw his hands at the right time to be effective. And that to me is his drop off, when he now is unable to do what he wants to do, and the energy levels aren't strong enough to now deal with what's coming at him. Round 10, hugely competitive round, but Rabasi still has the more accurate showstopper punches. Round 11, big effort from Dogboe. But what I noticed was Dogboe is overreaching, and eye-catching shots are all by Rabasi. And in round 12, Barry Hunter tells Dogboe, okay, son, this is it. You're down on the card. Take him to war. Those were his words. Take him to war. Dogboe comes in, and basically it's like a war. The last round, Dogboe goes in full tilt. But unfortunately for him, in trying to go to war, he is overreaching with his punches. And in one such situation, he walks onto a beautiful left hook from Rabasi, and he ends up falling into the ropes, and he takes a standing 8 count. The punch to me isn't a knockout punch or a knockdown punch, because I think most of the reason he fell was because he was overreaching. And he himself says at the end of the fight, he feels aggrieved for having had that standing 8 count. But he touches down. So the referee has to count it as a knockdown. Anyway, Rabasi wins that round 10-8. Again, the better combinations are coming from Rabasi. He's not loading up on the power. He's literally just picking his man to pieces now. And at the end of the fight, we have a unanimous decision win for Rabasi Ramirez. Dogboe is upset. For some reason, he thinks that the whole fight hinged on the knockdown, and he's asking for a rematch. But really, he doesn't realize he's clearly been well outpointed in this situation.
So what was your scorecard?
I didn't scorecard it. I haven't got a scorecard here. But anyway, I'll let you talk, because I actually have some some stuff. I could have done this over. I just remember I did actually load up some stuff for it. But you do tell us your take of what you saw out of that fight.
But that's Gonzalez you just put up.
Is it? Oops.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't watch it in the detail that you did, so it's very strange that you watched it in that much detail and you don't have a scorecard for the fight. But with that being said, I mean, I definitely saw that Ramirez looked to be the sharper of the two, especially sort of in the earlier rounds. Um, like his jab was, to me, was very effective in the initial stages, and then when he started sort of letting go of the backhand, I think Dogboe was having a little bit of issue in reading the trajectory. Obviously, coming up from like super bantam, he's always gonna be like one of the smaller guys in the division. That's one of the things that kind of plagues him. But I feel like he had his best success when he stopped trying to find his openings and then essentially just went for it. And in the process of going for it, he was actually switching at the same time. So you might sort of swing a looping shot from the right, and then he'll step into it and then swing a looping left afterwards. And I feel like that was where he was kind of having his best sort of success in the fight, from the parts that I saw. Now, in regards to the knockdown, it was a bit unfortunate because it looked more like he kind of tripped over the foot while extending, and then he was sort of like it was like a cuffing, almost like a cuffing push more than an actual shot. So even though by the letter of the law you can rule it, I feel like because most people know, look, southpaw orthodox styles, feet do get tangled, feet do trip. It is possible that you maybe that the referee didn't have to rule that one a knockdown. He could have waved it off, but he done what he chose to do, which is, you know, no one can't really complain too tough. And yeah, like out, I expected that Ramirez would win quite. I thought he would win quite wide on the scorecards, but I said in my breakdown that I thought it would be one of those fights where it's very, very competitive, but every round that he wins, like it's clear that he's just done enough to win the round ahead of Dogboe, and I think that's pretty much what won the day. But I knew he wouldn't be able to stop him, or to he wouldn't have that kind of grit, because even though he has been working on his power, like I feel like the extra £4 really does help Dogboe, like in terms of his stockiness, his solidness, and him being low to the ground. He absorbs those shots and is able to ride some of them a lot better. So overall, again, it's a fight I need to watch through properly because I was, you know, in and out of consciousness while I was watching it. But from what I did see, that's sort of the information I picked up. The right man won, and it will be interesting to see what Ramirez does moving forward. There should be some very good domestic, not domestic, some unification bouts that could take place, and we'll see if any of those happen, or if Top Rank decide to go another way. We'll see.
So I can say Danny Fight Fan had it 117, 110. I would probably have gone 118, 109, just because I think I only gave him rounds 5 and 6. Obviously round 12 was a 10-8 round.
So if it's 117, 110, how does that one work, Danny? Break it down for us, because that would look like you gave him 9 rounds to 2, and there's a round missing somewhere. Unless you mean 118, 110, or 117, 111, because it was Dogboe that got knocked down, not Rabasi. So yeah, just if you just put a revised scorecard, or just explain that one, and we'll put that comment up as well for you.
But yeah, just to summarize that card again, you know, a very entertaining card. The two main events were really good fights. You know, well matched opponents. You know, both were sort of, you know, good matchups. You know, I've got to take my hat off to Top Rank. Very, very, very entertaining night of boxing.
Oh, okay. So I get what you're saying. So he gave it 9 rounds to three to Rabisi, but
Probation.
because of the knockdown, that's where he got the one. Okay, thank you for clearing that up. I couldn't really work that one out. It's been a long day and I'm tired, so thank you for explaining that one. But yeah, no. To what you just said, Tony. Yes, top rank. When it comes to evenly balanced cards, all of their cards are like they're always solid cards. There's very rarely like a stinker, but they just never have like the big fights, or they have like maybe one a year, or one that the casuals might get invested in. There's never really much for them, but you might get sort of one. Whereas some of the other people, like for instance, Showtime, they may not have the deepest rosters. A lot of their cards may not be the greatest, but they might always give you that one where it's been built up for you to believe that it's the monster of the year. And obviously, the zone, you've got loads of superstars there. Sky is always there's compelling narratives and strong storylines behind a lot of fights to make you invested. So top rank they just trade more on the talent of the fighters as opposed to the sort of the build up to the fight. But and that sometimes it may be it lessens the credit they deserve, because again, as I said, if you look through their fight cards, you almost always get evenly balanced, well fought, well contested bouts. It's just that they're not promoted in a way that make you say, oh yeah, this is a must watch card. But yeah, no, I do tend to enjoy their cards when I watch them. So yeah, cool.
So, that being that, we shall now move on to the UK card. The headline was AJ versus Jermaine Franklin. Where do you want to start with this, bro?
Yeah, so let's just talk about our good friend Zizo very quickly and his performance on the before the bell segment of the card. Now, um, a real brief one because it's a 4 rounder. He's still sort of bearing his bones. Um, I'm still not 100% in agreement with sort of the way he crouches forward when he's looking to trade or when he's looking to get the jab off. But I think part of that is because if I had to hazard a guess, it's so that he can get more power into the jab by having more of his body weight going into it when he's shooting the shot. Um, it's a little bit dangerous to me just because he doesn't keep his chin like super tucked. So if someone is jabbing with you, there's a very big chance, obviously, you can catch more of the brunt because more of your body weight is lent forward into the shot rather than being in maybe more of a defensive shell while you're shooting the jab out. But his jab is definitely his best punch. Like when he said, that his hand was broken and the right hand, and he'd basically just been working on the jab for 6 months, you can clearly tell that that's what he's been doing because I think that his jab is like it's very very impressive, and it's always constantly being yeah, it's always constantly moving. It always seems to hit the target. He's got a nice double and a triple jab. um I think he needs to work on sort of moving his feet a little bit more. Like he stays stationary, I guess, to try and generate power, but that makes you a sitting target, which obviously isn't necessarily how um you want to go, especially if you're gonna be throwing shots from certain trajectories, especially against people that may be a bit smaller. As obviously what happened in the second fight where he ended up getting caught being flat-footed, and that's it ultimately what put him down. Um, if he sort of worked on being a bit more on the balls of his feet or on his toes a little bit more, I feel like he'd be able to create better angles for himself. But that being said, again, I thought it was a good solid performance. It was much better than the second, and I think it was actually better than the first, considering the type of opponent that he was fighting. Someone that clearly knew how to maneuver around the ring and how to stay safe. So I feel like he actually did a pretty good job. It is improved. There's obviously loads of things to work on, but he knows that. And I look forward to the next one. I just want to see him keep growing and growing. It's a bit of a shame I didn't actually get to chat to him on Friday when I saw him. But I was in, I was as he was coming out the gates, I was about to speak to him, and then someone who subs to my channel started speaking to me. So obviously I've got to communicate with them. And then it just, yeah, the timing was just wasn't there. And then the same thing on Saturday, I saw him, but where he was, I didn't really want to leave my seat to go all the way up the stairs to come all the way back round to go and speak to him there. But hopefully he does come over to the UK more for shows, and we definitely look to get him into, I guess, the studio when we get that one sorted out. But yeah, that's my sort of take on it. What about you, Tom?
So yeah, pretty much similar to yourself. I did, however, get a chance to have a quick, a little chat with him. I met him on Thursday evening at the hotel with his manager, who was the person that gave me the link in the first place. You know, he's such a lovely kid, very humble, very well spoken. You know, very aspirational. You know, if you're a follower of his socials, you'll see that he's a great aspirational character, because he does talk a lot about, you know, what inspires him and things that make him you know, tick. Obviously, you know, we have to consider that he's in the month of Ramadan, so you know, he's obviously fasting, so that would have had an effect potentially on his performance. But you know, it was good to see him in the UK. I'm pretty
Sorry,
much in
can you
agreement.
just confirm, is he actually fasting at the moment? Because you know you can delay the fast if you're in active competition, or you can donate money and so did he say he is actually fasting
He
at the
did. He
moment?
did. Yeah, he is fasting. He had
Okay,
been fasting.
okay.
So you know, it was very much a little bit flat for me, the performance. And what you were saying about being on his toes, I think that will serve him better going forward, because what he doesn't seem to have is the sort of, he sort of works at one pace, whereas what I would like to see him do is more of a herky jerky type of, you know, look, I'm gonna, you know, be in and out, I'm gonna show you something, and then I'm gonna revert to something different, maybe, you know, switch feet, just to give people different looks. It's very to me quite easy to see the pattern with which he's going to come at you. You know, he's an orthodox fighter. He's going to use a good jab, as you mentioned. He's been working a lot on developing that jab. But to me, he needs to work on changing the way that jab comes out. So, you know, flick jab, up jab, you know, power jab, using it from different angles so that it doesn't become so predictable. And then, you know, not just throwing the straight 1-2, but, you know, maybe throwing the jab hook off of it, the jab uppercut, you know, being able to switch and move around. We all know, you know, that fighters who are a little bit unpredictable are the ones who succeed. You know, that's why Tyson Fury is as successful as he is, because he's not quite just basic, you know, 1-1-2, 1-1-2 straight down the pipe type of fighter, you know. So I'd like to see him work on some of that, getting on his toes, you know, being a bit more elusive and trying to work from the outside in creating opportunities where, you know, I mean, my favorite fighters are all footwork first fighters, like Lomachenko, Devin Haney. You know, their footwork is superlative. So yeah, just, you know, look forward to maybe hopefully he'll develop that with Buddy McGurty's trainer, and we'll see him again, as you said, on some UK cards where we might be able to get him, you know, some more talk time.
Okay, so if we move on to the co-main, we're not really going to go through the rest of the fights on the card. They pretty much were what they were. Now, Tony, I'll sort of let you start off. You don't have to talk for the entire time. I'll definitely jump in, but give us your sort of take of what you saw in this fight.
Okay, so Fabio Wardley is, you know, look, he's not a bad boxer. You know, he throws a wide right hook as opposed to a straight backhand. Sometimes, you know, he's a little bit guilty of overworking that that wide hook where he should be looking to just throw it straight down the pipe. In this fight, Coffey was very effective with his own jab, as you can see there. And then obviously he leans on when he catches him by the head. That's, to me, an illegal tactic, which the referee didn't pick up on at all through the entire fight. And obviously, at the end of this fight, Howard Foster has an absolute nightmare in terms of what happens and in terms of the finish to the fight. But to me, Fabio Wardley is, a decent enough fighter. He's got very fast hands, He's moving through the gears quite nicely in this fight. He doesn't go all out in the first round. He's picking his shot. He's trying to set traps, but Coffey is there for the whole time and effectively doesn't make it easy for Fabio to get his work off. But when he does get it off, he does throw some really good shots and he catches Coffey well. Obviously, at the end of the fight, he throws a flurry, which has Coffey on the ropes, and Coffey is just protecting himself. He's got a high guard. He looks like he's rolling with the punches, but he's not really getting hit with anything that's concussive to stop the fight. However, Howard Foster decides, well, he's seen enough, and he comes in and stops the fight. But to me, Coffey's got plenty left in his tank, and he's in this fight. There's under no circumstances is he being overwhelmed by Fabio Wardley. So there's absolutely no reason why that fight should have been stopped. Certainly not at that point anyway. But it is what it is. Disaster class from Howard Foster. Fabio can go away, look at the footage of this fight, and hopefully, work on things like he could do better. As I said, you can probably still see he's throwing that wide right hook. He's throwing it to the body. The hook to the body is good, but he's throwing the wide hook to the head and missing badly. Whereas if he just throws that straight, and aims perhaps instead of at the head, aiming at the chest, he's getting that guy in potentially a damaging solar plexus shot. Or when he ducks into one of those straight rights. So, it's one of them situations where Fabio Wardley gets his win, but it's an unfortunate stoppage for me. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I pretty much agree. Michael Coffey came out initially in southpaw stance. He switched it quite a bit to try and change up angles and give different looks to his opponent, just so we can try and see what basically works best. Now, when he was in southpaw, I think his whole process was he wanted to be further away from Wardley's backhand to start off with. And I'll talk about the rest of mine in a moment after we see this flurry, which no matter where you're sitting in the arena, you can clearly see most of those shots are not landing, and the guy looks fine. Even to this point here, you see him, he pushes the ref like, what are you doing? He looks around in bemusement, frustrated, very upset. Howard Foster walks off like, oh, another one in the bag. And what's funny at this point is I was listening to ID Boxing podcast, episode 4 on Monday, and apparently when this all happened, you had Carl Froch. He turned around to Andy Clark and said, Howard Foster, that's a good referee right there, taking the mix because of what happened with him and George Groves. Look, I mean, the guy's he's got form for this, so it's at this point it's like it shouldn't really shock us, but it still does. I'm gonna play the footage back just to kind of talk over some parts of it. As you can see, Coffey is there in the southpaw stance to keep the backhand further away from himself and Wardley. But there's a couple times he doesn't judge the distance so well. But again, he's neat, tidy, tucks up, never panics. That marine training of his clearly keeps him in a state of calm pretty much at all times. Now, when he went into orthodox, as you can see there, he was actually landing jabs heavily at will. Like it's clear that his right foot is his I guess is his power foot, so to speak, because when he's in southpaw, his feet seem very slow to the target, but when he's in orthodox, that left foot moves very quickly into trajectory, which is how you see him popping Fabio's head back on several occasions with that jab, as you're probably going to see in a moment. Um, Again, just very composed. Doesn't rush anything. Anytime Fabio throws anything of note, he knows to either tuck up or he just relaxes and fires something back to make Fabio think about it. And yeah, it was a performance where it was definitely going to give Fabio things he had to think about. When the weight came into issues, anytime they got in on the clinch, Coffey knew all day he had that game sewn up. So Fabio was doing his best to try and stay mid range, but every time he would kind of fall in and think, okay, I got to try and hold and nullify. That's when he was starting to allow Coffey his moments to take his openings. Um, but yeah, it was just shaping up to be a very interesting fight. Again, at no point in this fight, yes, Coffey took a couple of fairly big shots, but nothing was, out of the ordinary. Nothing buckled his feet, nothing wobbled him. Couple times he fainted and played possum on the ropes, brought Fabio in, ducked and dived under the shots, came back with counters, and you could just see that he was comfortable. It was a fight where Fabio was going to have to work, and I think the thing that makes it um, even sadder about how it actually finished. I think again it was someone spoke to Fabio afterwards. They said, "Oh, like it would have been nice to see maybe how you recovered after that and what your gas tank was like, sort of after that initial flurry." And Fabio said to them, "Empty." So at that point, it was to say that he would have had to go into a recovery mode to try and get some of his energy back before the next attack. So even though he said in the interview, yeah, probably another 20 seconds later, I would have got him out of there. Well, he just confirmed that wasn't the case. That was never actually going to happen because he didn't have much left for that particular moment. I spoke to Danny a couple days ago and on my video about I'm not happy with the weight he's continuing to put on. Like he's just not naturally a 240-pound guy. And you can tell in this fight, there's times he's getting caught with shots because his feet ain't quick enough to get out of the way like they used to be. And for someone like him who doesn't have the greatest of defenses, his head movement was better before. Now it's like he stays on center just to deliver power. And I'm just worried that with the extra size that he's put on recently, if he can't get people out of there, number one, the stamina is going to be an issue. But number two, he's gonna be there to be hit, and that's maybe something that you don't necessarily want to see. So yeah, moving forward, I hope that I hope he can get back to sort of fighting the British guys, and we can get those domestic dust ups. So clearly that's what he wants, and probably that's where his level is. But yeah, it was just a shame that this fight pretty much ended the way it did because it should have never been stopped to that. And us as the fans, as well as Fabio and as well as Michael, were robbed of a definitive conclusion. So yeah, kind of, I guess I'll leave it there.
Cool. No comments on that one. So we move on to the main event, right?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. So I was on my full chest out last night on Monday Night Smoke, giving my opinion on Anthony Joshua's performance. Look,
There you go.
I got my view. That's all I can say. I have my views. I have looked at his performance since the Klitschko fight. And yes, he's got two very impressive knockouts against Povetkin and Pulev. But other than that, there's nothing there that makes me think that this guy in the last 5 years has got anything that makes me jump up and down and go, there's a guy who's on the up or is at the top of the game. I can't consider him elite anymore. And I did say it yesterday. I don't think Dillian Whyte is any better a position. He also, to me, looks to be on the downside of his career, and Jermaine Franklin has come in and in 2 fights against our 2 sort of top 10 fighters in the heavyweight division has made them both look ordinary. Has made both of them fights look ordinary. Franklin's hand speed, way better than AJ. Look at that 3-punch combination. By the time AJ starts to launch the punch, Franklin's already right in on him. Yeah. So it's just not a good performance for me from AJ. You know, he doesn't appear to me to be throwing with bad intentions the way he used to do. His selection of shots is not nearly as good as it used to be. His combinations are nowhere near as good as they used to be. Look, I'm not impressed with his jab. I don't think he's got that great a jab. Yeah, he's a heavy-handed guy. So when he does get you, it can look very entertaining, vicious, even if you want to say that. But I personally, I'm not impressed. You know, we just saw 3 jabs, 4 jabs from Franklin. Look at that work there, you know, in between AJ's punches. You know, AJ to me is looking more lethargic, more rudimentary, you know. And yes, he wins the fight. He wins the fight. But his performance to me reminds me of the Ruiz win. You know, I'm going to be careful. I'm going to be very precise in my punching. You know, I'm not going to allow myself to get hit. And so as a result, I simply don't see how AJ can be considered at this stage in his career to be elite. I'm no longer putting him in my top 5. As I said, I now consider Joyce to be a much more effective boxer than he is. You know, Joyce to me empties the tank. He's not a stylish boxer per se, Joe Joyce, but he's just going to keep working you and working you and working you. And when, you know, you look at the performance against Joseph Parker, that's the performance that makes me say, yeah, I don't think AJ could last the distance with Joe Joyce right now, despite maybe having the best of him in sparring. You know, I'm looking at Anthony Joshua now, and, you know, even in this later stage of the fight, I'm still not thinking, you know, here's a guy who's causing Jermaine Franklin any problems. You know, Jermaine Franklin has been given a lot of props by a lot of people, and I think he totally deserves this. There's no doubt in my mind the fact that he has never been dropped and never been stopped in his career tells you that he's a rugged opponent. But Anthony Joshua at one time was considered an elite boxer, puncher. You know, probably more puncher than boxer. But now, you know, he's got the guy in a place where he can throw a punch. And instead of throwing a punch, he's looking to hold. And I just don't like what I see. I don't see the guy that, you know, is gonna walk into a ring with Tyson or Usyk and show anything that makes me think, yeah, he's got enough to be able to compete with those guys. I mentioned it yesterday. The other thing that I found to be very telling was the way that Derek James talks to AJ in the corner. Derek James was imploring AJ to throw more combinations, to throw certain combinations that they must clearly have worked on in the gym. And AJ just doesn't seem to be able to do that. You know, look, jab, big wide left hook, 1-2. You know, there's no like, oh, 1-2 again. There we go. You know, where's the 1-2-3? Where's the 1-2 left hook, right uppercut? You know, there's nothing changing in the way he throws his punches that makes me think here's an elite fighter anymore. And when you see Derek James being as animated as he was in the corner, and him not being to take on those instructions and do what I think he needed to do, you know, Derek James is clearly telling him, let your hands go. And he doesn't do so. So for me, yeah, good win for AJ. You know, he showed that he can box against a very good opponent, against a guy who probably won't never be dropped in his career unless he's fight. Maybe Wilder can knock him out. I don't know, but this guy clearly is a very strong guy. He was obviously more prepared than he was against Dillian because he shed the weight. So he's been working damn hard and he wanted to take his opportunity. And I'm pleased for Jermaine Franklin that people now look at him and go, you know what? He's an opponent that might, against other opponents, do some damage. Look at AJ taking shots where, elite fighters just, know how to deal with this kind of opponent. No head movement, no double jab, no combinations. Thank you, the outlaw pugilist. So I think I'm spent in terms of description. I can't give you anything more by way of description of AJ that makes me go, what are the positives I could take out of that? I honestly don't think he's got the will. I don't think he's got the passion. I don't think he's got the capabilities anymore to be in with the elite. Great uppercut there from AJ, by the way.
Okay. So, Jam Down has asked, Tony, what made you think AJ was elite and what has changed since then? So, do you want to just expound on that while we're watching the footage?
Okay. The AJ that fought Klitschko, the AJ before the Klitschko fight, was definitely one of the top 2 fighters in the world at heavyweight division. And just based on the fact that he's the top 2 fighters in the division, probably most people's number 1, makes him elite. Now, does that mean he's elite as a boxer compared to, say, Errol Spence, Naoya Inoue, Lomachenko, Terence Bud Crawford? Hell to the no. But then people will say Tyson Fury's elite because he's probably the number 1 at heavyweight, or at least within the top 2. But again, he's not, as a boxer to me, anywhere near as good as the greats that we've seen at heavyweight. Lennox Lewis eats Tyson Fury for breakfast. But what I'm saying is the AJ that was number 1 or 2 easily in the heavyweight division before the Klitschko fight, and I don't know how much longer after that fight you want to have him up there as a number 1 or 2. That guy, we've long gone. He's long gone. No longer an elite fighter as far as I'm concerned. And that's why I classified him elite and why I mentioned that fight with Klitschko.
Okay, fair enough. Well, footage is about to be over, so I'm not going to load it back up. Look, I gave parts of my analysis of it on Sunday. Like, I felt I felt like a 6 out of 10 type performance. There were some things that I liked in there. With regards to North Bank's comment here, where he says, I'm with Tony, seen many talking about improvements, but for me, AJ was better in his last fight against Usyk. It's a different fighter. And I know obviously it's a very cliche thing to say styles make fights, but in this fight, you could tell AJ was very, very cautious of fighting a counter puncher, because the last time he fought a counter puncher and got greedy, he came unstuck. Usyk isn't a counter puncher. He's a front foot pressure pure boxer, or a pressure in pure boxer, I would say. So the risk to let your hands go isn't as great, because if you let your hands go, his hands stay holstered. Franklin wants you to throw a shot to give him the openings to allow you. And clearly, I don't know if AJ had heard any of this in the build-up, but Franklin kept saying, "Yeah, I looked at the Ruiz fight and sort of some of the other fights he had against the shorter guys. We see what some of his flaws are. We see what we can exploit." I'm pretty sure some of those words must have trickled down to AJ. So he'd be like, "Okay, you know what? I'm not going to give you all of those openings that you want, because if I fight this fight the way I want to fight it, okay, I might not necessarily get you out of there, but ultimately, you're not going to do anything significant. You might catch me with a couple shots, cool, but also I can shut you down at any given point in this fight, whereas you have to wait. You have to wait for me to make mistakes in order for you to do anything. And I feel that it was a very safety first approach. Um, Now, if we talk about what obviously North Bank just said there, we're talking about a guy ranked 30th. The box rec rankings aren't what they used to be for people to be giving that much credence to them. There's people that are in the top 15 on box rec that aren't even in any sanctioning bodies in their top 15s. So it's there was an algorithm on BoxRec that been messed up for years, basically. So before, when it used to be, it was just a points-based system, you could clearly see where people are. Now you can't. And realistically, there's times when you look at someone, and there's how many times have we looked at someone and said, "Oh, their stock's gone up in defeat," or we view them a lot higher because they had an amazing performance, even though they lost. But that doesn't reflect on BoxRec. BoxRec is just a defeat, and you drop down the rankings. So it's you have to decide which metric we can't pick and choose when each metric suits us. It's either we stick with one or we stick with the other. Now, in regards to this fight, I said it before and I still maintain it. If we say that AJ's only had one KO in his last 6 fights, that one KO came at the hands of someone that was 6'4" and above. Everyone else that he fought in that same period of time was 6'3" and under. That to me tells me that there's clearly an issue there with those smaller opponents. Now, should he have been able to deal with smaller opponents by now? Probably yes. And that is obviously a flaw that he has that he'll probably never be able to overcome at this point. But if we look at the fact of outside of Usyk, who is an anomaly at this point, the majority of the heavyweights that are gonna have the belts are all gonna be sort of 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and above. He's fine with those guys. So I feel like some of it is poor matchmaking. You just need to get him the right. If you get him the right opponent next, all of a sudden everything that people are saying, they might still say the same things, but the knockout's going to be there, and that's all they're going to focus on. They're not going to focus on the other things he was doing well, or the things that they didn't like, or whether he's regressed. All they're going to see is there's going to be a highlight reel knockout, and all right, cool. Now let's get the big fight on. So I'm not too, I wasn't too upset by it. Yes, I expected a KO to come, but just like I said before, Franklin is a good fighter, and I've disrespected his chin on 2 occasions now. I disrespected it with Dillian, saying, well, he'd never really fought anyone with the punching power of Dillian before, which was true, but he showed that punch power didn't mean anything. And the same with AJ. Now, whether AJ stepped into his punches enough or not, irrelevant, because Franklin was always able to get a bit of leverage or a bit of movement away from the punch to not take the full-blooded shot and fire back. And the fact that he's got a very quick power of recovery, or as soon as he gets it, he pulls the trigger, to which prevents you from actually throwing those combinations unless you're going to try and time him in between his quick counter, which then puts you in the line of fire, which clearly AJ doesn't want to do at this point in time. You just understand that, okay, one shot's not going to be able to drop this guy. It's going to have to be multiples, and it's going to have to be when he doesn't see it coming. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. It wasn't the greatest performance, but I saw some things that I liked. I saw some things that can be improved on. But ultimately, the fact he's now 255 and his gas tank seems to be, holding up all 12 rounds, and he doesn't need to take 3-4 rounds off. I feel like the next fight is the one where you say, okay, are things gelling or not? And I just think you need the right opponent to show whether or not that's the case. But yeah, we've got a bunch of comments in here, which most of them I think are directed towards you, Tony. So what we'll do, let's do them in sequence. Let's start with Bruce Kai. So Tony, would a KO of Wilder totally eradicate the negativity surrounding this points win?
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, could you imagine the furore of press? I mean, you're holding the back page You know, that's what we're talking about. Hold the back page. AJ is back. So yeah, if he goes in against Wilder and he knocks out Wilder, he's back. But I seriously worry about him in that situation. You know, I think he's a better boxer than Wilder, because when I talked about him being elite during the Klitschko fight and prior, don't forget at the same time, Wilder was knocking out all and sundry. But the difference is, Wilder, despite the fact that he's been humbled badly by Tyson Fury, goes out on his shield and fights with abandon to the point where he's knocked down Fury 4 times. And then he's come in against his sparring partner and knocked him down viciously. Now, yeah, we don't count that. But Wilder is still a concussive puncher and still goes out looking to knock people out. Whereas AJ, I'm kind of like, will we ever see the old AJ again? Has he got that fire in the belly?
Okay. But again, doesn't that also go back to what I just said about the type of people he's been fighting? So if he's fighting the counter puncher that he knows is waiting for him to unload, is he gonna want to be as trigger happy? Because again, those scars, they clearly haven't healed. But when you fight, remember, even in this, as Northbank said, he said he thought he was better in the second Usyk fight. Why? Because Usyk's not a counter puncher. So the Pulev fight, Pulev, a more stationary target, like pretty much battered him every round except for the ones that he took off when he unloaded the clip. Ruiz too, obviously we know what happened there. Safety first. The first one, he got greedy, got caught, and that's where all the demons came out. Povetkin before that, like, it was a guy who's not a counter puncher, but is a smaller guy who wasn't that great against, but found the range. When it's someone that he knows isn't going to be trigger happy to come back, that's what we have to see next. So I feel like while we're talking how we're talking for this one, cool, it makes sense. But clearly, this is a certain type of fighter. If the exact same thing happens in his next fight, and that person is not known as a counter puncher, or is not a 6'2" guy, or a 6'1" or something like that, then we can definitely say, no, he's done. You might as well just cash out with a big fight now, get beat and ride off into the sunset and deal with the, sort of deal with all your business ventures and all your commercial commitments and whatnot. But until I see him in there with an opponent that he's been successful with previously, and then he doesn't look good against that person, I'm not prepared to ram. Everyone has got strengths and weaknesses. Fury's got them. Wilder's got them. Joyce has got them as well, because no one was looking at Joyce as this big wrecking machine when he fought Bryant Jennings, when most people, including myself, thought he actually lost that fight. So, it is what it is. Same with Daniel Dubois. Like, he fought a bunch of people that were tailor-made for him, came up against two different opposition, who is Joyce and Lorena, and we see everything unravel from there. So it happens with everyone. I just feel that because it's AJ, the scrutiny is, very, very over the top. Same thing with Dillian White to a lesser extent, but this isn't the Dillian White show. So if we go to some of the other comments here.
Can I address this one for Black Super Sidebar? So ahead. Bad matchmaking by Eddie. I totally disagree. I think it was perfect matchmaking by Eddie, because it's a comeback fight. It's not quite a Dillian White where you could be in really serious danger. It's a fight that we've seen Dillian deal with this opponent, and obviously it's scrappy seconds, but it's a decent scrappy seconds. And to me, this is one of them fights where you don't have to knock the opponent out. You just need to box better. Now, he gets the win. Kudos to AJ for that. However, the method of the win isn't sufficient to make us feel like, yeah, he's on a new tip. He's on a, as Northbank Brent says, you could easily say the performance against Usyk is a better performance against a miles better fighter. Now, what we're looking for is a sort of hybrid between that guy and something what we've seen years ago. Because in that Usyk fight, we saw boxer, and what we wanted to see was boxer, but we wanted to see a little bit the old AJ spite. Yeah. Now, we saw the box a bit, we didn't see any of the spite. And that, to me, is where that's nothing to do with Eddie. Eddie gave you a guy that was there for you to hit. And if you didn't hit him, that's not Eddie's fault. That's no way bad matchmaking as far as I'm concerned. He was the perfect opponent because he's not going to knock you out. He doesn't carry that. He doesn't carry that. So you should be able to, I'm not saying blow him away, but what you should be able to do is show, listen, I can throw the spike when I want to.
Okay. This is actually a very good comment from North Bank. Remember, Dave Allen went the distance with Dillian, and then Dillian went and knocked out elite level people after that. So, and that Dave Allen fight was 2 fights removed after the AJ knockout loss. So these things happen. Like, yeah, like I said, I'm not saying it was the greatest of performances, but it's definitely not as bad as anyone as most people are claiming. And he, yes, Dillian fought him differently, and maybe Dillian was pressing the action a bit more, so he may have actually had more of a chance to try and get Franklin later on. But again, that may have got him clipped and hurt in the long run as well. But AJ won his fight with Franklin more convincingly than Dillian did, even though AJ fought a better version of Franklin. So styles make fights and everything, but I feel like that also has to kind of be put into perspective. And if we look at Franklin's best 2 performances, have both come against guys coming off of losses. So while I actually think he's a very good fighter, we now need to see what he looks like against a guy with a winning record, with momentum on his side, and then judge him based on that. Obviously, he's going to need a gimme fight for himself to get back in the winners bracket, but moving after that one, you just keep kind of going and going. But yeah,
can I just say something real quick? Obviously, look, boxing is a subjective sport. You know, what is one man's pleasure is another man's pain. I can see that my views do not correlate with some people's views on AJ. And I'm happy to be shot down on that. But what I will do is say, be respectful when you're talking amongst each other in the chat. I've had to put somebody on a timeout because I felt they went a little bit over the top with the disrespect. We don't want that. Look, this is a great community that we have here on the Undefeated channel. And the thing that is most important about that is we all respect that we see things differently sometimes. Base and I can see things totally different sometimes, and we could take the banter, but we never disrespect one another.
Okay, I second that. I didn't see any disrespect, but if you've been catching it, fair play. AJ not committing his right hand. He's throwing arm punches with next to nothing behind them. He also has no feint game, something all the top fighters have in their game. Yeah, I mean, again, Outlaw Pugilist, I think you're saying exactly the same thing we were saying, but I said exactly why. He's throwing the punch and then he's getting out of dodge because he knows the counter's coming, as opposed to being able to commit behind someone that's waiting for they're trying to come forward and find their own openings. Jermaine Franklin was purely just looking to catch AJ making a mistake and capitalize on it, and AJ was refusing to do that. So I think that's why he was fighting throwing arm punches like that. Fight fans responded to, I think this was Jam Down, said exactly, Lennox Lewis was seen and called boring. It's only now he's retired he gets the plaudits. That was in relation to whose comment was Mr. Riwi's comment, and he said, when we look at Klitschko's record at even Mayweather, no one cares about the KOs. History will judge you on your wins, and that's very correct. Let's see what else we got in there before we
I wish to just counter that point, because KOs do make a difference in careers, because obviously Mike Tyson made a career from KOs, so did George Foreman. A guy who's got KO power like that, even Wilder, nobody's really looking at his W's. Everyone's looking at his KO record. A 98% KO record in his wins is phenomenal, unheard of.
Yeah, but then Wilder's different because people have now looked at Wilder's record and say, yeah, it doesn't mean much because you haven't KO'd anyone with a pulse. So yes, you can say someone can have 100% KO record, but all right, let's put it this way: if you look at Wilder's KO record and you look at Beterbiev's KO record. Now Beterbiev's got a better one and it's against better opponents. So if you say that Beterbiev's a KO artist, it means something. Wilder being a KO artist at this point still doesn't actually mean anything because he hasn't KO'd anyone of any great value, with maybe the exception of Luis Ortiz. And he's only KO'd, he's only beat two top 10 people in his entire career, and only one of those people, you stopped him twice, fair enough, Ortiz. The other time it went to points. So until we see more KOs of like the top echelon guys, Wilder is just a, yeah, the statistic doesn't really mean much. Christopher Lovejoy had a pretty brutal KO record, but no one looks at him and says, yeah, he's this amazing guy because he's got like a 94% KO ratio or something like that right now. So that's my pushback to your comment, just a little bit.
Fair point. Fair
Uh,
point.
Bruce Kai jammed down exactly. I'm just trying to see how consistent the views are with AJ's performance. Is he now forever shit, or if he gets a KO, he's king again? And I think everyone has short memories. That's what I'll say, Bruce. So yeah, I think a KO at this point of a decent level opponent cures all L's. I think that's what we'll say.
Yeah,
And
I mean, let me, if I may, base, sorry, just explain my view on that, because remember when Tyson stopped KOing people, the invincibility factor just disappeared, and then all of a sudden, bums were coming off the street saying, "Yeah, I'll take on Tyson," and taking in the distance, and you're like, "Whoa, this is the guy who in his pomp was the most destructive puncher I had ever seen." Ever, and all of a sudden, the whole invincibility and the KO artists of extraordinary aptitude had disappeared completely. And so now we're kind of looking at AJ with like, oh, will we ever see the old AJ back who can go in and destroy people the way he used to do? And that was the kind of thing that I'm clawing, looking, thinking, where is that? Where is that AJ? Come on, AJ, show yourself.
Tony the Meerkat, we like it. All right. To praise Dale's comment, he says all of a sudden Joyce beats AJ because he beat Dubois and Parker. Parker, who by the way came in at a career heaviest and was not the same Parker as years ago. I mean, that's again is fair. You remember that was his third defeat, not his first. It's not like he was a undefeated guy, but Joyce clearly did beat him better than anyone else beat him. So we have to give balance on both sides, but that's a fair point. Um, North Bank says it wasn't actually a bad performance. I just didn't see improvement. Okay, fair enough. And North Bank also gives Tony some props. Says spot on, Tony. That's what makes the undefeated community great: the debate and respect for others' opinions. Now, I didn't see what extremely intelligent had said because all of his previous points I thought was fine. So whatever you saw, Tony, thank you for noticing. Maybe we'll talk about that off air. See if he does get unblocked in the future. Find yes, manners and respect always, and a major cage drop. Let this man get into camp with his new team. If 2 fights the venom isn't there, then we know he's declining. Right now, he can't convincingly fight the top guys: Fury, Joyce, Usyk, Wilder. Not now, which is pretty much what I said. Let's see what happens when he fights someone that's not a counter puncher and not 6'2", and then if it's still the same, then we've got a conversation to have. Bruce says, I believe there's a little bit of us that expect so much from AJ that it can muddy the waters a little to how we gauge performances that don't wow us. I mean, that's very, very fair. And Major K dot agrees, saying Bruce, 1000%, we will critique this man to the ground. Yet he went to fight. He went to fight majority of the division, which is true. I mean, look, whether you look at his resume funny in the light now, Tony, as opposed to maybe how you did before, he still fought more top 10, top 15 opponents in the heavyweight division than I think the rest of the top 10 put together. If I'm
Yeah,
actually
no, there's
so
no doubt, Base, that listen, this is why I said he was elite. Because at that point, before up to the Klitschko fight, and maybe even just a little bit after, he's one of the top two heavyweights in the division. He's either your one or he's your two. He cannot be anything less than one or two. Yeah. And in the division of 100 and 200, 300 heavyweight fighters all trying to be the best, to be number one or number two makes you elite, as far as I'm concerned. Even in the worst times of boxing, if you're number one or number two and you carry 3 out of 4 belts, you have to be considered elite, at least in that division at that specific time. Now, let's not say he's elite in that division of all time. The hell to the no. The division is weak, but he's cleared out everything. And for that reason, he's elite. So I'm giving credence to that point up to where he knocks out Klitschko. And as I said, you can go maybe a few fights after. The guy was the best of the best.
okay, cool.
I enjoyed watching AJ. AJ in his pomp was lovely to watch. Lovely to watch. Destroying Dillian, Brazil, Charles Martin, etc., etc.
Okay. Jamda says Wilder also has a type, stationary fighter who stand off trying to counter punch. Cool. Um, let's see, Black Superstar Sidebar says I think Wilder would have KO'd Franklin. I actually have to agree with that because Wilder doesn't like throwing down at that trajectory either. He has quite a he can do it better than AJ, I feel, with Venom, but he doesn't want to get caught because it happened against Spilker a couple times before. Obviously, he caught him last minute. So yeah. North Bank says I don't have a short memory because I'm an annoying D. Okay. Outlaw says, right, the feints help you set up your combos. Feinting offsets your opponent. AJ needed to do that to prevent the counter attack. Fair comment. North Bank, I remember when people spoke about David Price being the next Lennox. Again, okay, you know what? We'll end it on that. But what I will say with regards to that, I mean, look, in hindsight, it took he got beat early in his career by someone that was just a bad style matchup which derailed everything. Now, if those Tucker fights never happened, then maybe things would have been different for him. You never know. Maybe he would have actually been much better than he was because he was feared by the domestic scene at that point. But yeah, sometimes again you just have a style that's bad for you, a person that's your boogeyman. You just can't get past. So oh, actually, let me finish on this one because Fight Fan is rightfully pulling you up, Tony. So easy with the word bum, Tony. Come on now. Just which so-called bums are these going the distance? So, and you being a former boxer, even though amateur, yeah, respect
Yeah,
your equals.
I'm wrong. I'll take that L because I shouldn't have called them bums. It is a word that gets often put around the boxing community. I guess it's kind of industrial language, but yeah, no fighter who walks between the ring is ever a bum. So yeah, no.
Yeah. So I think I'm sorry. I think I said Tony Tucker, and I meant to say Tony Thompson. But yeah, that's fine. Okay, look, that's guys. We've come to the end. I didn't think we'd be on the stream this long, if I'm totally honest with you. We got in the AJ bag. It took a little longer than I was expecting. Maybe we went too deep into the top card, the top rank card, but it's all good. Hope you guys enjoyed. We got the most amount of people watching now than we've had all show just about going down a bit now. So clearly you guys were entertained and interested. So thank you very much. Just a quick reminder for everyone who is here, make sure you do come back next week because Natasha Jonas will be a special guest on the show. And yes, we definitely want to have everyone sort of show out for her. The BBBOC Boxer of the Year 2022. I think the first ever female to win the award. So yeah, great things for her. I was hoping to see her today actually at the press conference, maybe doing some work with Sky Sports, but she wasn't there. But yeah, make sure you guys remember the standard rules of engagement. All questions, either members or forms of super chats, as they come up as different colors, we will be focused on the screen and won't necessarily see them unless we see that color change. And yeah, with that being said, Tony, tell the people where they can find you.
So basically, Pugilistboy is the social name for all the social media platforms, which mainly are YouTube and Twitter. Instagram is slightly different. It's Pugilistic Boy on Instagram.
Lovely. And as for myself, as you can see there, BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual. That's pretty much everywhere. Instagram is just BaseDaKID. Twitter, even though it's B_A_S_E, if you type in BaseDaKID, the whole thing shows up and I'm just there. I can't lie. I'm gonna wait for that. I think that tick's gonna come soon enough. I get myself verified, and if that happens, I'm gonna have to clean up my entire timeline because it's I've got legacy on there which might get me in trouble by the woke folk. That's what I'm gonna say. Yeah. So and if I get verified, I'm deleting that Twitter and starting a new one. I just let you know that from now. But yeah, listen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the show. Please come back next week. Bless up. Keep watching Undefeated Podcast. I think they put up some of the interviews that I've done earlier on from the press conference. I hope you guys enjoy those. Please like and subscribe to those as well. Please leave the comments there. I'll be checking them out. I'm going to get to work on a video or maybe a couple of videos for tomorrow to get the rest of my content out for this week. But yeah, that's it for me. Tony, you got anything else you want to say before we bounce?
No, thank you very much again. As you said, thank you for everybody who's joined. Specifically, big thank you to all the members in the house. We appreciate that you have taken your time, and you've not only taken your time, but you've put your money behind your support. So yeah, we appreciate you and look forward to our show next week.
All right, peace out, guys.